I'm out of breath. Walking these hills, you get your cardiovascular in. Folks, this is Greg Judy, Green Pastures Farm. Today we're up here on F, actually at the new farm that Jan and I bought this spring, and I'll get my breath here in a minute. Anyway, I've been watching this land over here, and this is all part of those 17 housing sites that they were going to put in, and Jan and I bought the majority of the farm and put it all back together. Ripped up all the signs and put in new fence, and yeah, made it back into a cattle farm. Instead of growing houses, we grow cows. But I'm looking at this and nothing being done with it, you know, and I didn't know who the owner was, so this is a lesson. Pay close attention. So I got a hold of a realtor, and I got the name of the fellow that bought it, called him on the phone. He didn't know me from Adam, and kind of told him where I was at, bordered him on the side. We'd fenced the farm next to him, so we are actually neighbors here. And then I go across the back over here. So we've got half of the farm already fenced. Now, he's got 6 acres here, and he bought it as an investment. And he's never gonna sell it. I found that out. He's not gonna build a house on it. So he left it to his daughter. And I just met with the guy. Brought him out here. I was here on time. I was here before he was. That's an absolute. When you tell somebody you're gonna meet somebody, you make sure you're there before they are. I had my 4-wheeler sitting right over here by the fence. And when he pulled up, of course, we introduced ourselves to each other, and he said, well, where do we go from here? I'm like, well, let's get on the 4-wheeler and I'm gonna go show you your property. So we started driving on it. And he was wanting to know where would be a good place to put in a road entrance up here for a future investment, because down the road, his daughter may sell it as a building site, which could happen in, you know, this guy's in awful good health. I mean, it may be another 20 years. Anyway, long story short, we came up right after on that point is probably where the house would go on this 6 acres. So he's gonna, down the road, not right now, but he's got an idea now where he wants to put in his culvert and the rock entrance coming into this property. It doesn't have any water on it. I'd already thought about that before I talked to him. And we've got several things that we can do here. One is we've got a pond up the valley up there, and I've got head pressure. I'm thinking putting a snap coupler in below that dam and just run it down this creek, because see, this is the direction the creek is going anyway. And just lay a pipe on top of the ground and put me a livestock tank down there. And then from that tank, we would do long rectangular paddocks back toward Route F right here. Folks, this is a nice piece of grass. I'm telling you. I mean, it's 30% big blue stem. I mean, look at the big blue stem in here. That's that warm season perennial. And then underneath it, of course, is my Kentucky 31 fescue that everybody hates, that I love to death, because there is no other grass in the state of Missouri you can make more money with than a Kentucky 31 fescue in the wintertime. Let me put that in there. There's other better grasses in the summer, for sure. But in the wintertime, boy, oh boy, I would take all this that I could get. Folks, we haven't had any rain. Of course, this hasn't been grazed. But look at this. I mean, my gosh. I just called Isaac and talking to Jan. This is something we were excited about. So we got a lease on it. I got a lease. I'm not going to tell you what I paid, but he was happy. He was very happy. And he said, it sounds more than fair to me. That's what he told me. Well, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. So we drove around it. I showed him the corners. He didn't even know where the corners were at. So I showed him the corner up here. There's a red stake, and there's one up here on F. So we're gonna stretch a line, poly braid line from one point to the other. That'll give us our border this way, east-west. Of course, we got Route F right here behind us. And then there's our corner right there. So I'm gonna be able to hook onto my existing hot wire, just put a sleeve over and hook onto the power right here. And we're gonna run a new 5-wire fence, just like this. On this side, it's gonna match all the way around. Now, I did keep the fence on this. So he did make the comment, if I sell it or my daughter sells it for a building site and they don't want the fence, he said, you know, it's your fence. So I can bring the fence with me. That's what I love about high tensile wire, is it does allow you to roll it up. It's easy to take up fence. I've taken up a lot of it. Shoot, we could get this up in probably 2 hours. I'm serious. As far as the wire, it wouldn't take us over 2 hours to roll it all up. Probably take another 2 or 3 hours to pull the post. But look at this, man. I mean, it. Folks, there's some serious forage out here. So the water, we handled that. So let's go back where we were at. So we walked over the farm. I drove him over it on the four-wheeler. He didn't have to walk. I put him on the back, I got on the front, and we drove it. Because he's older. He's a little bit older than I am. And so he didn't have to walk it. We drove it. And he saw my cows over here, the bulls. They're right over here, right across the fence. He goes, man, those are good looking cattle. And I looked at him, I said, well, how'd you like to go move them? Oh, he said, that sounds like a lot of work. That's what he said. That sounds like a lot of work. I said, well, let's go over there. I said, you can just stand at the four-wheeler, I can move them. So I went over there, we rolled up the reel, and when he saw him, he was like, oh my gosh, these are beautiful. Rolled up the wire, all the bulls and steers went right into the next paddock. I grabbed the reel, I back fenced them back to the pond, to their rock skirt. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I want to keep all my pressure here so they can't come back and regraze over behind us. Boy, he said, that's awful simple. I'm like, yeah, it was, wasn't it? Look at this. That's deer. There's one, two deer laid down here. That's a big deer. That's probably a buck. Anyway, we moved the cattle, came up here, and he's like, man, my wife has been on me to get us a beef. I'm like, well, we can get you one of them. Got one ready here in January. And that's the closest we can get a butcher date because of deer season. All the butchers are shut down now for deer season. They're not taking beef until they get all the deer processed. And he goes, well, man, that worked great. So we made a sale of beef. We got the lease, and when he shook my hand at the end, he said, Greg, I feel good about this. He said, when you get cattle on our property, he said, would you mind taking a picture of it and texting it to me? I'm like, absolutely. I said, we're gonna keep you updated. We start building this fence in here. I'm gonna be texting him pictures of what we're doing. So everything I'm telling you here, folks, these are kind of some of the things you need to do if you're gonna go out and lease land. You know, he got 6 acres here. I can tell you, he gave one heck of a price for it. Okay, he wanted a piece of ground. He'd sold some property, and they call it, I think it's called the 10th. Y'all can correct me. Is it the 1031 exchange? You've only got like 60 to 90 days to reinvest it. If you sell a property and you sell it for a lot more than you bought it for, there's capital gains tax on it. But if you reinvest that money into another piece of ground, those capital gain taxes are not due. In other words, you took that whole thing and put it in another piece of land. That's what he did here. So I'm not going to tell you what he gave for it, but I know what he gave. It was a chunk. It was a chunk. But you know what? We got 6 acres here. And we're going to graze it, and I guarantee you, he's happy, I'm happy. The bulls and steers are going to be happy when they come in here, and it's going to get better. He saw what we were doing over there. He says, you mean you don't give them any hormones? I'm like, no, we don't give them any. Well, I said, everybody puts hormones in the ear to make them put on weight. I'm like, no, we don't. We don't do that. Oh, he said, I like the sound of that. Well, then we got up there, he's looking at the manure, and he goes, I don't see any in the new paddock. I said, well, it's because the worms ate it all. He said, well, how you doing that? I said, well, we don't pour Ivomec. We don't use wormer. Oh, yeah, I said, we don't use wormer. I said, so it doesn't kill the earthworms and the dung beetles. Man, he liked the sound of that. And then when I told him we didn't use any chemical fertilizers, well, how do you have all this grass? I said, because look what's coming out the back of them cows. And when you give them a smaller area like that, you move them frequently, you're getting really good fertilization. So, yeah, he was here 1 hour. Yeah. And his last words to me when he left, he said, Greg, I wish I had more time. I'd love to spend some more time with you seeing your operation. I said, we can take care of that. Bring your wife next time. Give him a farm tour. So that's something I'm going to propose in the future. Folks, you got to build relationships. And if you're not willing to work with people and talk with people, and if you're not a friendly folk, you're somebody that doesn't like dealing with people, you're probably not going to get along real well leasing land. You gotta put yourself out there, man. You don't have to lie to anybody. Just show them who you are and you know what you're excited about. And it's funny. We met. And he got to talking. He said, "Are you related to that other Judy up there at Macon?" Which I'm like, yeah. And he was talking about my brother. He goes, so my brother builds timber frame homes. Probably some of the best timber frame homes in the United States. And he's retired now, but he still does a few, maybe one every couple of years. He goes, you two are kind of alike. You do things different, don't you? I'm like, well, yeah, kind of do. But yeah, he said, boy, that Alan, he taught himself that trade, that timber frame, and he said, he is unbelievable. I'm like, yep, he is. He is a craftsman deluxe. So, anyway, I'm excited about this, folks. People go, oh, Greg, it's only 6 acres. All right. Well, if I feed these bulls an acre a day, that's 6 days. If I do that 4 to 5 times a year, all of a sudden you're looking at a month. Folks, that's a month they're on this 6 acres that they're not on the 140 over there. It's worth a lot to do that. So, yeah. There's another 7-acre tract right on the other side of him. It looks just like this. We'll see. I don't know about that one. But, you know, you're not going to know unless you go ask. So, anyway, just wanted to give y'all an update. We just picked up another piece of ground that fastens onto the bull farm. And it's not going to have a house built on it. Not as long as this guy's alive. And so, yeah, I'm willing to work with that. Folks, y'all have a good one. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. And remember, every day is a gift. Treat it like that, and you will do well in life.